Hey everyone. You know, I would have been more prepared if I knew it was going to be the most windiest day of the week, but you never can be prepared. After multiple takes, camera blowing, originally this wasn't the big pad, but it almost ripped it off and I almost lost my notes, because we got to come prepared. But yeah, welcome to Matinee Cinema, where we are going to be breaking down films. My style. Where I'm going to try to analyze films in ways that others really don't look towards to, because, that's not interesting, right? Again, don't mind that the camera is shaking. I know it's scary, but, we're trying over here. So, what movie are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about Babygirl, which is probably not the film nobody really expected me to talk about, because it's Babygirl. It's supposed to be erotic, it focuses on grown women being sexy out here, especially during Christmas. But that would just kind of be the case in point of what anyone would analyze about the film. But that's not what we're going to talk about with Babygirl. Because I look at Babygirl as a revenge film. And you're probably thinking, that makes no sense. But yeah, let's get to the pointers. So, Babygirl came out last year. So, I always say that everything that's trying to be hidden in the dark comes to the light. When you look at Rami, her whole basis of really case in point, we start from, oh yeah, by the way, spoilers, we should probably refer that, so spoilers. But anyway, yeah, opening shot, in the light of her having a fake orgasm leading into her walking into the dark, hinting at her destination, hiding her true desires. I want you to remember that last part, hiding true desires. And the case in point is that this film analyzes a couple things, especially the work aspect of what people's true intentions are and what they really want. Because a lot of people think that in work status and spaces, these things don't factor. Yes, they do. And why do I say that? It's because in Christmas, what's the theme about Christmas? We give people gifts. What is the gift that keeps on giving? And in Babygirl, it's what is the gift or the position that is given. Wind is definitely kicking up now, so we're gonna, try to get in case in point. Another reference of the film is that you look at the reference of the dog. You look at Samuel, and the first time that Rami is introduced to Samuel is outside seeing him and his cadence towards the dog. When you look at the dog is more formal. It looks upon direction, and it gets rewarded upon direction. So, when you look at Rami, that's the whole basis. It's that for her, what is her reward? What is the thing that she wants the most? Is it really just the orgasm, or is it the purpose? Is it the thing that she has been shot away from and being shamed into for most of her life? But this is also really about Rami. See, when you look at Samuel and Esme's characters, what are their motives? Because when you look at them in the beginning, they just look like two people that are just working in the same space as Rami. It's all cordial, regular basis. But when you look at the film real closely upon lens, it's a transformation upon the theme of Christmas and the gift that keeps on giving. Esme wants the position to actually empower women. Rami really doesn't care for that. For her, she just wants her own self-pleasure. When you look at Samuel understands that to give Rami what she wants, it puts him in position of not power over her, but in power of his destiny. Because really think about it. Where would we want to start? Yeah. So, the first thing. Warehouse automation dream equaling the internet is not reliable. When you look at that conversation between Rami and Samuel, they sit upon that theme, that the internet is not reliable. And it connects back to the dopamine of the phone, because what does Rami do constantly? She looks away from confrontation. Samuel doesn't look away from confrontation. So, lack of communication around her. If you notice, a lot of times, she's always numb to everything. Everything is very robotic, it's very construct. Boom, bada bing, bada boom, she's out the room. But with Samuel, she confronts things that she usually avoids from her. So there's also that. Now, another thing that's interesting is when you look at correlation of themes. You look at the men in this movie, you look at the women in this movie. When you look at Samuel, and when you look at Rami's husband, they're very two different terms of men. When you look at one that has an introduction of how he looks society to be, as far as especially from a sexual aspect. When you look at Samuel, his is more abstract. There is a specific on the way he approaches Rami, the way he approaches Esme. which that plays important too. Because when you look at Esme, when you look at Samuel, their whole thing is that you don't really get to hear much with them in conversation. Because even when Rami's watching them from a distance, we don't know what they're talking about. But those two are specific to this movie. And why is that? Because the thing is that they both want positioning. And when you look at this film, the reason I say it's a classic revenge tale is because Samuel and Esme are the two examples of being underestimated, not really being valued towards their potential. See, Samuel is just the sexual guy. He's the guy that's looked at as the face. When you look at Esme, she's just the assistant. No one looks at them as the higher position. No one looks at them as anything valuable of that. But that's the case of point what this film wants to show you, is that it's deeper than that. And to further upon that, we look at the momentum of shift within even location in this film. So when you look at the motel, where do we start off when we look at Rami and when we look at Samuel the first time they have a real conversation of what they're trying to, elaborate and collaborate with each other? It starts in a motel. It's nasty. It's not really romantic. There's nothing about it that's thematic. But then, when you look at the expansion of their relationship, it builds off into the grander suites, into the fancier lifestyle. It's because it shows the development between the both of them and the trust that's there. Samuel understands this and knows that from that car conversation when she tells him, you can't come around our family, it sets the ground that for Samuel, he understands, I'm breaking her slowly. Because now I see her weakness and I can leverage that. And you know how I can prove that to you? Because later in the film, what does get revealed? He's now with Esme. Because she warns Rami again and again, when are we going to talk about the promotion? When are we going to talk about the promotion? That promotion keeps getting highlighted and Rami is not respecting it. So this goes back again to Samuel and to Esme. Because at one point in the film, when Rami walks into the office, Samuel's done having a conversation with the gentleman we see at the end of the film. What were they talking about? We don't know what they were talking about. And this again plays into the leverage point. And this is why I believe that this film really is about Samuel and Esme. Now again, another interesting point is that when you look at Rami and Samuel when they're in the bed and they're laying, if you notice the tattoo, what is the tattoo? It's a tattoo Cupid with a mass shooting towards her direction, pointing, I'm coming for your spot. We're coming for your position. Because you are too focused on your desires that you're losing track of what your position values and what you're supposed to be doing. It's really windy out here, but it's okay, bear with us. So another thing that I thought was interesting is that tunnel entrances. That's another key thing. Is that when you look at her, she's about to meet up with Samuel, I think it's at the club or something like that. That's another thing that's interesting, leading her into these worlds that she can't prepare for. So now when you look at the near end of the film, transformation as far as themes coming together, secrets getting revealed. It goes all the way back to when Samuel disappears. It makes you think, what did Samuel's intention this whole time was? It was never clarified. In the end, his whole thing is that he knew that the closer he got to Rami, him and Esme would be able to position themselves towards the true goal of both of them getting what they really want. Because at cost, what really changed for Rami? Sure, she's still with her husband, she got her orgasm, but she didn't value her position. She didn't value the important things around her. Meanwhile, you look at the younger generation of this film, they value their position. And sure, it's not perfect how they got it done, but they understand that something has to give. So Babygirl is a film that highlights a couple things in theory. Is that positioning is everything, but it doesn't mean value if you don't actually put effort towards it. Relationships and dynamics in work are a lot more psychological if you really pay attention and close to them. And this film is every bit of a psychological thriller outside of romantic relationships. It shows the dynamic and the importance of when you look at the older generation and the younger generation of how we value our position. And when you rewatch the film, you might notice these things. It's windy as shit. Thank you for appearing. We gotta go. Bye.